Hello, my name is Darren Thomas and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this particular video, we're going to be looking at authentic listening for ESL students. So let's go ahead and see what we can learn. So when we're talking about the word authentic, we are talking about realistic activities. In other words, things that students might actually do in the real world as a student or out in the actual working world. And so we have four particular strategies, or you can call them activities here: editing, note-taking, retelling, and interpretation. Now with editing, what's happening is that you have two things going on. The student receives a written copy of whatever they're going to listen to, and they have to read that, and also after they're kind of familiar with it, they're going to listen to it. And they have to mark differences between what they hear in the recording and what they see in the reading. In other words, they have to try to find as many discrepancies or differences between the audio version of the text and the visual version of the text that is in front of them. So you can see that this could be, pretty challenging. You have to be able to not only read, but also to listen at the same time while also marking or, doing some writing as well. So this is a really challenging activity for ESL students. The next one that we have here is note-taking. Of course, this is what students do when they're in school, of course, is take notes. And so you are expected in this particular activity to listen to someone else who is speaking, and you have to try to determine what is, if you look at the second bullet here, important. This is very tricky. This takes judgment, and of course, no two students will do it exactly the same way. So in order to help the teacher to find a way to try to mark this type of an assignment, you might have some sort of a group rubric, where like they have to take down 10 points, or they have to, take down 5 points, whatever, or they have to, structure it a certain way, or maybe fill in some sort of an outline, whatever. It's up to the teacher. But keep in mind that the note-taking activity is much more subjectively marked in comparison to what we saw previously. So again, maybe you don't necessarily have to do this for points, but just kind of assess where they're at and their ability to listen and to try to find the main points. And then as you see weaknesses, you can provide reteaching opportunities so that the students get more comfortable with a complex task like this. The next one is retelling. So this doesn't involve any writing or note taking, but you could include that if you desire to. And your goal here is to have them listen to something and explain what was heard or what they heard. Excuse me. And so your goal when you are marking this assignment as a teacher is to assess the accuracy of it. So if the students listen to a story, you can ask them, okay, who was the main character? What did he do? Where did he go? What happened to him? Those sort of things to check their comprehension. In other words, retelling can be, kind of similar almost to like a reading comprehension activity, where they have to explain things to you orally, or I guess if you wanted to, they could also write it down if you desire. But you're really trying to assess their ability to listen to something and to try to tell you what happened or tell you what was going on in the subject of what they were listening to. Interpretation is where students, now this is a little bit more complicated, have to develop or draw inferences based on what was heard. So they take the information that they receive and they start to form their own conclusions, logical conclusions about what they were listening to. So they might listen to a song or a poem or a clip from a movie. Now, interpretation is different from retelling in that retelling, you're just trying to state the facts. He or who, what, where, when, how, why, etc. like that. Whereas interpretation, well, let me back up. Maybe not who, what, where, when, but interpretation is focused more on the why as an example, or maybe even the how, if you will. In other words, why do you think he went to the store? Or why do you think he was upset? Or what was his emotions? So you're trying to determine the mood, the meaning, the implications. Okay, these are often more open-ended questions where you have multiple potential ideas and ways of answering the question. And so again, when it comes to marking, this may be more of a formative assessment rather than a summative assessment, because you're trying to pull the opinions of the students from them in relation to whatever they were listening to as part of the activity. So in conclusion, we have basically 4 examples of authentic listening activities here on the screen: editing, note-taking, retelling, and interpretation. Each of these has their place when appropriate in the ESL classroom, and it's really up to the teacher to decide when to use these various tools. So once again, I would like to thank you for listening. My name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Thank you for watching, and you take care.